The summer of 2024 will be etched in British memory for all the wrong reasons. What began as localized protests over economic hardship quickly escalated into widespread riots, engulfing cities across the UK. The speed and ferocity of the unrest shocked the nation, exposing deep-seated anger and frustration. The riots laid bare the social and political fault lines running beneath British society. They revealed a nation struggling to cope with economic inequality, political disenfranchisement, and simmering racial tensions. From the shattered storefronts of London to the burning barricades in Manchester, the images were stark and unsettling. The riots were not just about broken windows and looted shops. They were a symptom of a deeper malaise, a sign that something was deeply wrong. The violence forced the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about its present and its future. To understand the riots, one must understand the economic anxieties gripping much of the UK. Years of austerity measures coupled with the global economic slowdown had taken a heavy toll. Inflation was rampant, eroding the value of wages and pushing many into poverty. Job losses, particularly in traditional manufacturing sectors, were on the rise, leaving many feeling left behind. The gap between rich and poor continued to widen. Austerity measures disproportionately impacted the most vulnerable: the poor, the elderly, and ethnic minorities. Many felt the government was out of touch with their struggles, more concerned with balancing the books than addressing the rising tide of poverty. This economic disparity fueled a sense of resentment and injustice, creating fertile ground for unrest. The economic woes were compounded by a growing sense of political alienation. Many felt ignored and unheard by the political establishment. The Brexit referendum, while intended to settle the question of Europe, had deepened divisions within British society. Trust in politicians was at an all-time low, with many viewing them as self-serving and out of touch. The first past-the-post electoral system meant that many felt their votes didn't matter. The two-party system seemed unable to address the complex challenges facing the country. This lack of political representation left many feeling powerless and disillusioned. They saw the riots as a way to make their voices heard, even if it meant resorting to violence. Underlying the economic and political grievances were deep social divisions that had been festering for years. The UK, once a beacon of multiculturalism, had seen a rise in xenophobia and intolerance. The influx of immigrants, while enriching the cultural fabric, had also led to tensions in some communities. Social media, while connecting people, also created echo chambers where misinformation and hateful ideologies could flourish. Algorithms designed to maximize engagement often amplified the most extreme voices, deepening divisions and polarizing public opinion. The riots were a stark reminder that beneath the veneer of civility, deep-seated prejudices and anxieties could easily be exploited. Section 5. City under siege. London erupts. London, the bustling heart of the UK, became the epicenter of the unrest. The riots began in Tottenham, a working-class neighborhood with a history of racial tensions. A peaceful protest over the death of a young black man in police custody quickly spiraled into violence. Soon, other London boroughs were engulfed in flames as anger and frustration spilled onto the streets. Iconic landmarks like Buckingham Palace and the Houses of Parliament were targeted, symbols of a power structure many felt had failed them. Shops were looted, cars were torched, and buildings were set ablaze. The air was thick with smoke, the sound of sirens, and the shouts of angry protesters. London, a city known for its order and civility, had descended into chaos. Section 6. Manchester and Birmingham. A wave of unrest. The unrest quickly spread beyond London, engulfing other major cities like Manchester and Birmingham. While the initial spark in London may have ignited the tinderbox, each city had its own unique set of grievances and underlying tensions. In Manchester, a city with a proud industrial heritage, the decline of manufacturing jobs and the closure of factories had left many feeling economically marginalized. Birmingham, a city known for its diversity, saw clashes between different ethnic groups. The riots exposed the fragility of social cohesion, highlighting the urgent need for dialogue and understanding. The unrest, while shocking in its intensity, was a stark reminder that the problems plaguing Britain were not confined to the capital. Section 7. The law responds, a city under lockdown. As the riots intensified, the government deployed thousands of police officers to quell the unrest. London, in particular, resembled a city under siege, with riot police patrolling the streets and helicopters circling overhead. The police, initially caught off guard by the scale of the violence, responded with force, using tear gas, rubber bullets, and water cannons to disperse crowds. The deployment of such heavy tactics, while restoring a semblance of order, further inflamed tensions. Many accused the police of brutality and heavy-handedness, claiming they were targeting protesters indiscriminately. The riots and the subsequent crackdown raised serious questions about police tactics, civil liberties, and the right to peaceful protest. Section 8. The tipping point, confrontation in Trafalgar Square. The unrest reached a boiling point during a massive demonstration in Trafalgar Square, the symbolic heart of London. Tens of thousands of protesters, angered by the economic crisis, political inaction, and the heavy police presence, converged on the square. What started as a peaceful demonstration quickly turned violent as clashes erupted between protesters and police. Protesters hurled rocks and bottles at police lines, while officers responded with tear gas and baton charges. The iconic square, usually a hub of tourism and activity, became a battleground, the air thick with smoke, the sound of explosions, and the screams of the injured. The images of the confrontation, broadcast around the world, shocked the nation and served as a wake-up call. Section 9. The long road ahead, picking up the pieces. As the dust settled, the UK was left grappling with the physical and emotional scars of the riots. The economic cost of the damage was immense, with businesses destroyed, livelihoods ruined, and the tourist industry dealt a severe blow. Yet, the true cost went far beyond the material. The riots had exposed deep divisions within British society, shaking the nation's confidence and leaving many questioning the very fabric of their society. The task ahead was daunting, rebuilding shattered communities, restoring trust in institutions, and addressing the underlying grievances that fueled the unrest. It was clear that simply restoring order was not enough. The nation needed to engage in a difficult but necessary conversation about inequality, injustice, and the kind of society it wanted to be. Section 10. Conclusion. A call for change. The UK riots of 2024 were a tragedy, a stark reminder that even in seemingly stable democracies, the fabric of society can unravel with shocking speed. The riots were a wake-up call, a desperate cry for help from those who felt ignored, marginalized, and left behind. The violence, while never justified, was a symptom of deeper societal ills that could no longer be ignored. The riots forced the UK to confront uncomfortable truths about itself, the deep-seated inequalities, the political alienation, and the simmering racial tensions. The road to recovery would be long and arduous, requiring honest dialogue, meaningful reforms, and a renewed commitment to social justice. The challenge for the UK was not simply to rebuild, but to build back better, creating a more just and equitable society for all.